The end times and the prophetic signs. Are we living in the end times? This question has resonated deeply with countless generations and continues to challenge our faith and discernment today. The book of Revelation, Apocalypse, written in symbolic and poetic language, provides us with cryptic signs of the end of days. Yet, do these prophetic warnings align with the global events we face in our modern world: wars, natural disasters, pandemics, and societal crises? In this video, we invite you to reflect deeply on the connection between these biblical prophecies and contemporary events. However, our purpose is not to instill fear or spark sensationalism. Instead, this is an invitation for meaningful reflection, spiritual preparation, and increased faith. How should we interpret these signs? What is God calling us to as believers in these pivotal times? Let us dive into Scripture and the world around us as we seek discernment and spiritual clarity for the road ahead. The book of Revelation presents a vivid and symbolic depiction of the end times through visions filled with imagery, seals, trumpets, bows of wrath, and celestial battles. Yet, these are not literal descriptions but spiritual truths communicated through powerful symbols. Among these prophecies are signs of worldwide upheaval, increasing wars, natural disasters, plagues, and economic turmoil. Revelation 6 speaks of the four horsemen of the apocalypse: conquest, war, famine, and death, a sobering image of calamities that will impact the earth. In chapter 8, we read of catastrophic events unleashed through trumpet blasts, earthquakes, hail, fire, and poisonous waters. Such signs have long intrigued Bible scholars as they consider parallels between John's visions and the realities of human history. But we must ask, are these warnings specific to a distant future, or do they also serve as patterns and shadows that repeat throughout history? Are the wars and disasters of today merely coincidental, or are they part of God's divine timeline as revealed in Scripture? To answer these questions, we must critically examine the signs described in Revelation and their possible correlations with the challenges of our current age. Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, Jesus foretold in Matthew 24 verse 7. This warning is echoed in Revelation, where global conflict and unrest are cited as precursors to God's ultimate judgment. Peering into our world today, we cannot ignore the shadow of war that looms large over nations. Since the 20th century, 2 world wars and countless smaller-scale conflicts have devastated humanity. The technology of warfare continues to evolve, with weapons of mass destruction posing unimaginable threats. Could these events signify that this is the time of the Red Horseman, who takes peace away from the world? While Revelation may not align with specific conflicts, like World War II or contemporary acts of aggression, it does remind us that war is both a spiritual and a physical reality. Revelation calls believers to remain steadfast in faith during conflict, recognizing God's sovereignty even in the chaos of human strife. Are these wars a sign of impending judgment, or are they God's way of testing our reliance upon Him? It's a question every believer should ponder. Among the most striking elements of prophecy in Revelation are the natural disasters that seem to shake both heaven and earth. The sixth seal in Revelation 6 verse 12 speaks of a great earthquake, the sun turning black, and the moon like blood, a terrifying upheaval that symbolizes cosmic transformation. Revelation 8 continues this theme, warning of fiery hailstorms and a third of the earth being consumed. As we reflect on our current age, natural disasters appear to be growing in frequency and severity. Earthquakes, tsunamis, hurricanes, and fires have ravaged the planet, causing immense human suffering. Climate change, while often discussed in scientific terms, presents a provocative question when viewed through a spiritual lens. Are these disasters simply part of the Earth's natural cycles, or are they signals of a divine plan unfolding? For Bible scholars, the question is not only one of correlation but also of response. Revelation reveals a God who controls all creation. In times of disaster, we are summoned to remember Him, not in fear, but in faith. For believers, each quake and storm carries a simple yet profound call: be spiritually awake and attuned to God's will. One of the most vivid warning signs of Revelation is that of plagues and pandemics. The pale horse in Revelation 6 verse 8 brings death to a fourth of the earth through sword, famine, and pestilence. Throughout history, humankind has faced plagues that seem almost apocalyptic in scale, from the Black Death to the flu pandemics of the 20th century. And in our current world, the COVID-19 pandemic revealed the fragility of global health and human systems. For many, these pandemics are a direct reminder of the biblical warnings about disease during the end times. However, rather than solely sparking fear, these crises invite us to deeper reflection. Is our creation groaning under the weight of human sin, as Paul describes in Romans 8 verse 22? Or, perhaps, are these events divine reminders of our dependence upon God, even when science and technology fall short? As we contemplate the role of pandemics in prophecy, we must also consider how we, as believers, respond. Are we turning inward in self-preservation or outward in compassion for those suffering? Revelation calls us to steadfast faith and action amid the trials of disease and death. Revelation also speaks of famine and economic instability as critical signs of the end times. The black horse in Revelation 6 verses 5 to 6 carries a pair of scales, symbolizing economic imbalance. The passage warns of scarcity, exorbitant food prices, and inequality, a prophetic vision that resonates deeply with the financial crisis we witness today. From global recessions to rising inflation, the economic challenges of our time leave many wondering if such instability reflects the warnings found in Scripture. The increasing divide between the wealthy and the poor, coupled with resource scarcity, paints a picture reminiscent of the imbalance described in Revelation. But as we think about such crises, the Bible also calls us to reflect on spiritual wealth. As Jesus warned in Matthew 6 verses 19 to 21, storing treasures in heaven far outweighs pursuing material gain. These economic signs remind believers to keep their focus on eternal riches, trusting in God's provision no matter what earthly instability arises. Faced with such overwhelming events, it is tempting to rush to conclusions. The world is ending, some may say, while others may dismiss the signs altogether. Both extremes, however, miss the deeper spiritual message these signs convey. The Bible teaches us to approach these subjects with humility. In Matthew 24 verse 36, Jesus reminds us that no one knows the day or hour, not even the angels in heaven. Therefore, obsessing over specific timelines can lead to error or fear-based interpretations. Ultimately, these signs point us toward deeper truths about God's sovereignty and our need for redemption. They remind us to live as though we are always in His presence, continually preparing for Christ's return in both heart and action. As believers, we have a unique role in these times of uncertainty. While the world may respond to crises with fear, panic, or indifference, we are called to live differently. Revelation challenges us to be lights in the darkness, offering hope and truth to those overwhelmed by despair. The Church's role is threefold: prayerful vigilance, compassionate action, and unyielding witness. We are called to intercede for the world, care for the suffering, and proclaim the good news of Christ amid these trials. The signs of the end times are not just warnings, but opportunities for revival. They challenge us to reflect God's love and truth in an increasingly broken world. What can we, as individuals, take away from these prophetic warnings? First, we are reminded to examine our own spiritual walk. Are we living out the priorities God has set for us, or are we distracted by the fleeting concerns of the world? The signs of Revelation call us to focus on eternal matters, faith, love, and spiritual growth. Second, we are invited to trust God deeply, even when the world is chaotic. Whether through wars, disasters, disease, or poverty, we have the reassurance that God remains in control. These are not random events, but part of a divine plan that ultimately leads to the redemption of all creation. Finally, we are reminded of the urgency of sharing the gospel. The time is short, though the exact moment of Christ's return is unknown. Every disaster, every uncertainty should propel us forward with a renewed desire to share the hope and salvation found in Jesus. So, are we living in the end times? Perhaps. But the greater question is this: are we living in spiritual readiness? The signs of prophecy are guideposts, not alarms. They point us toward a deeper understanding of God's eternal purposes and invite us to align our lives accordingly. Though war, disasters, and pandemics may cause fear, Revelation assures us that hope lies in the Lamb who sits on the throne. As believers, we are not to despair but to trust, to reflect, and to act for the glory of God. Let these signs be a call not to panic, but to prepare, to live faithfully, love deeply, and shine brightly in a world that so desperately needs the light of Christ.